Hey, everybody. It is Friday, March 28th. You're listening to the Mo News Podcast. I'm Moshe Mununu.
And I'm Jill Wagner. This is the place where we bring you just the facts.
And we read all the news and read between the lines so you don't have to.
Moshe, we made it to D.C. We made it back to New York. Lots of interviews, a lot of work, but also a lot of fun.
Yeah, we had an opportunity to talk to Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., as well as several White House officials who work on policy, work on communications, get a sense of what's going on there. In a week, Jill, where, especially at the White House, they've been dealing with the signal situation, especially in the communications department, and have like a million other things going on. You know, one of the themes that we took away from, I think, all the interviews, if we do like a search in the transcripts, is the speed in which things are moving there, which was the subject of a few of our interviews. And we should note, we have a couple clips in this episode, but we'll be putting out a couple special episodes with all the interviews here in the next day or two.
Yes, we spoke to two officials specifically in the Trump administration who were both part of Trump's first term. And it was really fascinating because they said the difference this time around is that he came in knowing what he was doing, ready to act. And that's one of the reasons that it feels like every single day there's 10 major news stories that come out.
Well, part of that is just the pace that the White House is putting out, but they're also talking about implementation. Jill, a number of themes. We tried to approach this administration on a variety of topics through these interviews. You know, for those of you looking to get a sense of what they're thinking inside the West Wing right now, I think you'll get a pretty good sense of that if you listen to all of our conversations, which, again, will be coming out here in a special episode the next day.
All right, now to the headlines. The Trump administration's planning 10,000 job cuts in a major restructuring of the health department. So what does it mean for the department and Americans' health? Moshe, that news broke on Thursday about an hour before we were slated to talk to the head of the health department, RFK Jr.
Yeah, so a natural way to start that conversation, we'll have a bit of that in the episode in just a bit.
A story getting a lot of play online. A Turkish student at Tufts University swept up in the crackdown on alleged visa violations.
Yeah, you may have seen this video. It's already leading to protests in that town in Massachusetts.
A shoo-in for confirmation, Representative Elise Stefanik no longer in contention for the UN ambassador spot because the president doesn't want to lose his slim majority in the House.
She thought she had that job, Jill, and then they pulled it all back.
And the latest in Signalgate, a judge ordering the Trump administration to preserve the chat about the Yemen military operation. Bill Gates has a bold prediction about AI, which two professions he thinks AI will replace, and it's not the professions that you would think.
This Bill Gates guy, what does he know about technology?
2006 called, it wants its Facebook back. Mark Zuckerberg pushing a throwback to OG Facebook.
But do we want OG Facebook back is the question.
Does that mean I have to write status updates?
You do, and then you got to poke people.
I like the pokes. And goodbye, Park City. The Sundance Film Festival is headed to Colorado. And it is Friday. Cheers to the freaking weekend, what we are watching, reading, and eating.
With a special edition from RFK. We asked him what he's watching.
Kind of.
Stay tuned for that.
All right, some big cuts are coming to the Department of Health and Human Services. HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. saying that he would significantly cut the size of the department. We are talking about 10,000 full-time employees spread across various agencies. They're in charge with everything from responding to disease outbreaks to approving new drugs. And this is in addition to roughly 10,000 workers who chose to leave the department through voluntary separation offers when President Trump took office. So combined, the cuts would eliminate about a quarter of the workforce, which would bring it to about 62,000 people. The department would lose 5 of its 10 regional offices. RFK Jr. says essential health services will not be affected. He said in the announcement that he is realigning the organization with its core mission and the new priority in reversing the chronic disease epidemic. But he does admit it's going to be a painful period for HHS. Moshe, we interviewed RFK Jr. shortly after the announcement Thursday morning, and here's how he explained the cuts.
The agency is in disarray. You know, there was the Biden administration increased its budget by 38%, increased personnel by 17%. But health actually accelerated by all the metrics of public health accelerated during that 4 years when it was expanding. The money is not solving things. We have over 100 comms departments. We have 40 HR departments, 40 procurement departments, 40 IT departments. Today, we're doing a big reorg with the help of Doge, and we're streamlining the organization.
Kennedy says most of the people who will be losing their jobs are HHS administrators, and that the agency is working to increase the number of scientists and frontline health providers. About 3,500 people will be axed from the FDA, about 2,400 from the CDC, about 1,200 from the National Institutes of Health, and about 300 from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. He says the goal, though, is to keep the department's core function. But of course, there's a lot of skepticism on whether that's really possible.
Yeah, when we talk about those cuts from FDA and CDC in particular, that's nearly 20%, 1 in 5 people who work at those two agencies. Now, he says that things are too bureaucratic, and his big argument is that they added all these people, additional people during the Biden administration, with not much to show for it. So his argument, and the larger Trump administration argument, is that more doesn't equal better. You're hearing that as they talk about the Department of Education. You hear that as they're talking about a variety of agencies, right, that they're calling for cuts from. And you hear it from Kennedy here when it comes to HHS. He actually tried to make the argument with us, Jill, yesterday, that this is going to increase morale, that cuts and the fact that now you're going to have fewer people being more efficient and doing more things will actually boost morale. Remains to be seen if that'll be the case here. But there's a lot of critics, including a union representing many of the workers. Not surprisingly, they say that the cuts here are preposterous, that this is going to hurt a lot of functions at the agencies. Democratic lawmakers are also critical here. Ed Markey, senator from Massachusetts, says the evisceration of workers isn't just a restructuring, it is a catastrophe in the making. The former head of the CDC under Obama, Tom Frieden, says that it's hard for many people to see the importance of what the CDC does when it succeeds. There isn't an outbreak. Your neighbor doesn't overdose. Your cousin stops smoking, et cetera, et cetera. So cuts to this work will put all of us at greater risk here. Effectively, he's making the comparison there between the CDC and things like the FBI, where it's like you need to be perfect. And if we're doing our job, things aren't happening. Bad things aren't happening. Now, again, Kennedy is trying to make the case here, and the larger Trump administration making the case here, that there is a better way to make things function. There's a lot of redundancy, a lot of inefficiency, a lot of bureaucracy, and that ultimately things need to be reframed here.
Moshe, it looks like most of what he's proposing, he has the power to do, but some of it could require congressional approval. George W. Bush tried doing something similar, but ran into some roadblocks. He made a big push for centralization. We also had a chance to talk to RFK Jr. about some other topics as well. As we've been reporting, in his first 6 weeks in the role, he has zeroed in on the food and beverage industries, especially products marketed to kids. So he's proposed banning the ability to use food stamps to buy soda and increasing chemical testing on baby formula. His campaign is called Make America Healthy Again, or MAHA. And we asked him about what he thought about some of the rollbacks when it comes to environmental regulation and how that fits in with Make America Healthy Again. Here's what he had to say.
Well, I don't regulate the environment, and President Trump has specifically asked me to stay away from environmental regulation.
So that was very interesting, Jill, because that's one of the critiques that, we've brought up, which is like, well, if we're going to make America healthy again over at HHS, seems like you're going in that direction or trying to go in that direction. But what about all these EPA, lifting of regulations on CO2 gases and pollutants into the atmosphere, into the water, into the soil? And it is fascinating to hear his answer there, because he immediately froze up and he's like, I can't touch that stuff. And that he's a lifelong environmentalist. These have been huge issues for him. But, Trump has made a point of saying, I'll let Kennedy go crazy on health, but he's not going to get to touch the environment and not get to touch my oil drilling. Now, obviously, there's a larger effect of all of it on our health. But Kennedy's very careful here as he tries to make inroads and establish himself as the Secretary of Health and Human Services, work within that administration. Remember, Kennedy, until a year ago, was a Democrat. And so there are many areas in which he disagrees with President Trump, and there are some areas where he agrees with President Trump. So, we tried to get him to go there, and he clearly did not want to go there because he knows that would get him in trouble. And so he's not touching EPA, except for he's like, well, I get to work with EPA and fluoride in the water, was something that he noted for us. we've talked about this in previous episodes. There's a push in some communities right now in some states, and now with Kennedy at the federal level to take the fluoride out of the water. Fluoride we've been putting in the water for decades, partially for dental health that prevents cavities, but at the same time there have been studies that show at a certain amount. At a large amount, fluoride can create cognitive issues for children as they're growing. So that's one of the issues that he's brought up here. Jill, was also interesting. You brought up, the conversation we had with him about the food and beverage industry. And I asked him, what was that like, meeting with Pepsi and all of these companies that, you have hammered for the products they're making. And he's like, listen, none of them pushed back on me in this meeting. He had this meeting. They put out a photo of him with the CEOs of the largest, soda, beverage, and candy and, processed foods companies in America and around the world. And he's like, listen, we're going to see what they come back with. We've asked them to do certain things. They didn't push back in the meeting. We'll see what they do here. Speaking of which, sugary drinks is a big thing for him. While there's not much he can do about the President Trump's Coke button, he has at the Oval Office, he has a button that he can press at the desk that sort of looks like he can launch a missile, but it's actually just to get him a Coke, Diet Coke. There's not much he can do about the president's drinking of sugary drinks, but certainly for the country, he wants to do something. And one of the programs that he's trying to roll out here is to ensure that food stamps no longer cover sugary drinks. He says that right now, if you look at the food stamp program, 13% of Americans, roughly 42 million people, use food stamps to buy sugary drinks, and he wants to stop that. Now, that's gotten some pushback from the Agriculture Department, which runs the food stamp program. So we'll see what happens there. And then when it comes to baby formula, which has been a big issue, for our audience, in particular, a couple of years ago when there was that shortage, he says that FDA regulations have, in his words, poured concrete on innovation. And so he's looking to figure out ways that he can allow for more innovation when it comes to baby formula in the U.S., but also make it easier for Americans to buy foreign formula.
All right, lots of interesting stuff. And again, we'll have that full interview up on our interview feed today, along with the other officials, probably this weekend. All right, time for the speed read from the New York Times, a story that's been getting a ton of interest on our Instagram and across the media. A home security camera captured federal agents arresting Turkish national Remesa Öztürk. She is a Tufts University PhD student, and it happened when she was leaving her home in a Boston suburb on Tuesday. So you may have seen the dramatic video. At least 6 federal agents in plain clothes, some wearing face masks. They exit an unmarked vehicle before surrounding her on the sidewalk outside of her house, and then they grab her and they put her in the vehicle. The arrest sent shockwaves through the university community in Somerville, Massachusetts. Thousands turned out Wednesday in the Boston suburb to demand her release. They argued that she was arrested for simply exercising free speech. She co-wrote a piece in the Tufts Daily last year calling on the university to take a pro-Palestinian stance toward the Israel-Gaza war, but it is unclear if she took part in any campus protests. A spokesperson for Homeland Security said she had, quote, engaged in activities in support of Hamas, which was grounds for her student visa termination and arrest. They have not released any details on the pro-Hamas activities.
Her lawyers say they're not aware of any charges filed against her thus far. In fact, they haven't been able to get in touch with her, nor do they really know where she's being held right now. A judge earlier this week blocked the Trump administration from moving her outside of Massachusetts without notice. Despite that, it appears Immigration and Customs Enforcement showed on Wednesday that a person with her name was being held in Louisiana. That's the facility where they also took that guy from Colombia, Mahmoud Khalil, and where other foreign students have been detained by the Trump administration. As we await more details here from the administration, Secretary of State Rubio was asked about this yesterday. He didn't offer more details about the evidence or the various accusations they have against her. He simply said, if you apply for a student visa to the U.S. and say you're coming not just to study, but you to participate in movements that vandalize universities, harass students, take over buildings, cause chaos, you're not going to get that visa. This has been an argument that he's making here. And so the administration doesn't really feel like they have to list out the accusations against these visa recipients. As far as they're concerned, a visa can be offered and a visa can be yanked. She did, in that op-ed piece, get into BDS, which stands for Boycott, Divest, and Sanction Israel. Other members of the BDS movement have been involved in some of these efforts that have vandalized universities, harassed students. So I think the idea there is that by endorsing that stance, she's associated with the larger movement and some of the more extreme things that they've done. That said, we will wait on DHS here to see if, what else they have. But as far as Rubio is concerned, visas, again, can be yanked. Green cards can be yanked. And he said yesterday that 300 student visas have been revoked so far, again, asserting that this is a right as a country about who you let into the country. And as far as due process and First Amendment is concerned, there's different rights that you have as a citizen versus a visa holder.
All right, an update now on Signal Gate from the Washington Post. A federal judge on Thursday ordered that the Trump administration preserve the records of that Signal group chat about sensitive military operations in Yemen. The judge, James Boasberg, who's the chief judge of the U.S. District Court in D.C., ordered the agencies relevant to the case, so we're talking the Defense Department, State, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, CIA, Treasury, National Archives, to, quote, preserve all Signal communications between March 11th and March 15th. As we've been reporting, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, the Vice President, the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and other top national security officials used the commercial messaging app Signal to talk about the strategy, timing, weapons, and sequencing of a U.S. attack on Houthi militants in Yemen. Waltz initiated the discussion and inadvertently included journalist Jeffrey Goldberg in the group chat.
Right. This is a story we've been telling you about all week. That's why we know everything that happened, because they let Goldberg into the chat. So now there's this legal case that has been brought by this liberal group, American Oversight. They're looking for more details on this, anticipating the public interest. In the Signal case, the judge, Boasberg, said, again, he wants all the records preserved here. Now, notably, Jill, Signal allows you to have an auto-delete or auto-erase function. And it appears, if you look at the screenshots of the chat, that several of the top officials there had auto-delete there. So the question is, what's left of the chat? That's going to be one of the answers that we get here in the coming days. Now, American Oversight, which brought the lawsuit here, says, in short, there can be no question that the Signal messages in question constitute core federal records. Without court action, they will automatically be destroyed or lost forever, if not already. Jill, one of the reasons that the Trump officials use Signal, and by the way, not just Trump officials, I know former officials from the Biden administration and previous administrations have used chats like this, a personal email like this, is so there is no record of what they're saying. Now, there are laws around this, and that's the concern. Are they being abided by? Will the judge call it on it? This is one of the questions that we're going to have generally. But, going back to the Hillary Clinton thing, right? She had more than 30,000 emails on her personal server, not on her government email account. So we'll watch all of that. They're trying to make a pivot in the administration right now saying, we're ready to move on from this. We're going to investigate this. But only to a certain extent. The Attorney General yesterday was asked about it, and she's like, I'm not dealing with it. I don't think there's an issue there. Now, typically, that would be something the Attorney General would look into. There was a letter sent, a bipartisan letter. Roger Wicker, the Republican of the Senate Armed Services Committee, and the top Democrat, Jack Reed, they asked the Pentagon Inspector General's office to now investigate this. Roger Wicker, again, Republican, he's the guy who effectively was able to push Hegseth over the top there in the confirmation hearings. He wants a briefing. He wants a private briefing. He wants some details here because he has some concerns about the fact that they're using Signal for private conversations, even if they argue that the details in there are not classified right now at the time, is another story. Now, as far as Boasberg, that name might be familiar to all of you. Yes, he is also overseeing that separate case when it comes to the Alien Enemies Act, the deportation of Venezuelans to El Salvador. He is the Chief Justice of the D.C. Circuit. There's about 15 judges. There's a lot of cases, random assignment by an automated system. And somehow, yes, he got randomly assigned to this case as well.
Of all the courtrooms in all the countries.
Right. He's the one Trump wants impeached.
By the way, speaking of potentially sensitive information on that Signal chat, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that Israel provided sensitive intelligence from a human source in Yemen on a key Houthi military operative targeted in that attack, described by National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, again in that Signal chat. So shortly after the strikes began, Waltz texted that a key target of the attacks, a Houthi missile expert, had been seen entering his girlfriend's building, which he said had been destroyed. Israeli officials have reportedly complained privately to U.S. officials that those texts became public because apparently, I guess it could put one of their sources in jeopardy.
Yeah. So now that this is out, it appears we know how they were able to get to this guy, because Waltz told everyone in that group, JD Vance and everyone in Hegseth, like, hey, we got the guy. He was going to his girlfriend's place. Well, how did they get that intel? From the Israelis, because the Israelis had a source, and they were tracking the girlfriends of the Houthi terror leaders. And now that those screenshots are out there for everyone to see, guess who knows how they were able to attack them? The Houthis. They're like, hey, guys, don't go to your girlfriend's places. Don't go to your family's places. Don't go to your friends' places. So, to the Israelis and to, intelligence agents, they're like, listen, we have an agent. Now the Houthis are going to try to figure out who the girlfriend knew or who observes the girlfriend. And so there are real life ramifications. It's one of the reasons why, this whole conversation is happening and why you don't want foreign adversaries to see what's going on, even if they weren't able to deter that attack. That ultimately, if you're able to hack into Signal or any sort of unclassified system to have these conversations, adversaries or friends of the adversaries can learn stuff about you and prevent the next attack. So some frustration there in the intel community.
From Politico, New York Congresswoman Elise Stefanik will return to House Republican leadership after President Trump withdrew her nomination to be U.S. ambassador to the UN. The decision to pull Stefanik's nomination caught a lot of Republicans on Capitol Hill off guard, as did Trump's public acknowledgement that her seat, which he had won by 21 points in November, could potentially be in jeopardy for Republicans if there were a special election held. The president writing on Truth Social, with a very tight majority, I don't want to take a chance on anyone else running for Elise's seat. The people love Elise, and with her, we have nothing to worry about come Election Day.
Yeah, so that's how he feels. She clearly, is disappointed here. She did a whole goodbye tour to her district. She gave up her leadership position. She's been talking about her new role, and then it all falls away. I mean, Jill, until recently, until like the last couple of days, she was talking about this new role, being UN ambassador, and so it looks like this was a pretty abrupt move here. And given that she was pretty high up in House Republican leadership, Speaker Johnson's already replaced her. So now he's going to have to create a position for her to bring her back to leadership. So she's not just like a random rank and file regular member again. And so he wrote on X, I'm going to have her return to the leadership table immediately, even though her official role is taken up by another congresswoman right now as the conference chair. The larger issue here is, and we've talked about this, and this was a concern when Trump started, picking up House members like Matt Gaetz, who obviously, withdrew, but the aforementioned Mike Waltz, he was a congressman from Florida. You also had Elise Stefanik. And so Johnson was looking around being like, dude, you can't take any more of my members. I have a 3-seat majority here. Now, it seems like it's so slim that they have to have Stefanik come back now. And there is a concern that there is a momentum shift in some of these districts. We're going to watch this election coming up next week, that special election race to replace Mike Waltz's seat in Florida. He comes from a seat that went to Trump by 30 points in November. Right now, there's a race between a Republican and Democrat in that same district that's about 5 points apart. So Democrats very much overperforming, at least in that specific race. Now, is that a larger trend? Is that just specific to the candidate? That's always a big question here when it comes to these special elections, off-year elections. But there is a sense among Democrats that Republicans are worried that there already is a trend line going into next year's midterms that voters will be ready to, put Democrats in the majority, at least in the House, as a check on executive power. And so right now, every vote matters. And so Mike Johnson looks like he had a call to Trump saying, hey, give me my congresswoman back, even though you're about to make her a UN ambassador.
I can't imagine she's too happy right now.
No, this sucks. I'm sure she's because you're going back to being one of 218 members of Congress, at least on the Republican side. You're going back to being one of 435 members of the U.S. House.
No, remember, Nikki Haley was UN ambassador. It's a very high profile position. Yeah. It's a launch pad for potentially higher office. So yeah, Elise Stefanik taking one for the team. All right, let's talk a little tech here from the New York Post. Bill Gates predicted that advancements in artificial intelligence will significantly reduce humanity's role in many traditional tasks like medicine and education. And he thinks that this seismic shift could happen in less than 10 years. During a recent interview on The Tonight Show, of all places, the Microsoft co-founder described a future where humans are no longer necessary for most things. That's how he describes it, because AI will readily perform tasks that currently require specialized human skill. Today, expertise in fields like medicine and education are still pretty rare, according to Gates. He said that currently those areas depend on a great doctor or a great teacher, but he thinks that over the next decade, great medical advice and great tutoring will become free and commonplace thanks to AI.
Yeah, your AI doctor and your AI teacher. Again, this is the Tonight Show. So as Joe Biden would say, no joke, no joke. This is some real stuff on the Tonight Show. Gates elaborated on this vision, a new era he terms free intelligence. There's a conversation he had last month with Arthur Brooks, a professor over at Harvard. Gates predicted that AI technology will increasingly permeate our daily life, revolutionizing areas from healthcare and diagnosis to education. Now, this is an ongoing discussion, right? Like, how much will we let AI in? How much will it take over for us? The same conversation we sort of had with the internet to a certain extent. But AI is next level, right? These language models, these models that effectively can take over aspects of your life. And it's so interesting, because we talk about AI doing some more administrative type functions. But more and more, if we're talking about like a full AI teacher or full AI doctor, that's pretty significant. And so while generationally, some of us of a certain generation, Jill, might not be ready for that, we have new generations coming up, and they're going to live a reality where they only know AI. And so some of this stuff might be much more comfortable for them. And frankly, Jill, we'll see the results and say, actually, the AI doctor did better than this doctor, right? This human doctor.
Well, listen, we have a serious doctor shortage in many places in this country. And we also have a teacher shortage as well. So many teachers left the profession during COVID. And so we'll see. Maybe AI is the answer that we're looking for. From CNBC, Meta on Thursday debuted the Facebook Friends tab. It is a new feature that's part of CEO Mark Zuckerberg's pitch to revive the original spirit of his social networking app, or OG Facebook, as he calls it. In a post about the new feature, he wrote, "The new Friends tab is a throwback to OG Facebook when you only saw Friends status updates. More OG Facebook coming soon." He did a screen grab that said, "Point of view, seeing what your friends are up to in 2006 when you signed on to Facebook." And that's what you really saw. It was a scroll of your friends and what they were up to. And then he compared it to 2025, when people's feed is filled with influencers and people that you're not really friends with.
Yeah, the bigger question is, can you get people to come back to Facebook, Jill? I mean, I remember when we were doing various experiments, we began Mo News on Instagram, and we talked about launching some things on Facebook, and like the amount of people who were like, I don't sign into that. I deleted that. I don't use that anymore. Mosh, like, stick to Mo News stuff on Instagram was remarkable. So even as they try to, kind of bring back the best of Facebook, the median age of a Facebook user has gone significantly up. So, for many of them, they might not remember it because Facebook was the train of the youngins 20 years ago, and now it's the train of our parents, I should say.
And we've all migrated to Instagram. The people of our generation
yes.
have, for the most part, migrated to Instagram.
Minus, I would say, Facebook groups and Facebook Marketplace. I think functionality, those are kind of the two remaining features of Facebook. Oh, and a reminder of when people's birthdays are.
I still have that where it will give me this birthday reminder for some
plugs
random
into my
person,
iPhone calendar, and I'm
just like, oh, I don't care. I don't want to know.
No, but actually, if you track it by the year, like the number of wall messages you used to get like 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and now it's like, again, it's my parents and my parents' friends who are leaving wall messages on my birthday at this point.
From The Hollywood Reporter, the Sundance Film Festival is leaving Utah. After 4 decades in Park City and a year-long search to find a new location at the expiration of its current contract, the beloved indie film festival is now heading to Boulder, Colorado. This will be starting in 2027. Boulder beat out some other locations, notably fellow finalists Cincinnati and Salt Lake City. Some factors in picking the winner: travel. Apparently, several industry veterans gripe that there was only one direct flight from LAX to Cincinnati every day. Public transportation, housing, and of course, available movie theater venues. The new contract with the city of Boulder and the state of Colorado will be for 10 years.
So Sundance was actually originally named for the Utah ski resort that Robert Redford, the actor, once owned. And it's seeing that its contract will expire after next year's festival. So they're promising a blowout next year for the final Sundance in Utah. The issue, and people who've been to the festival will attest to this, that Park City, effectively the festival has outgrown Park City. Locals have grown tired of the influx of people. There's like massive traffic. Just doesn't have the infrastructure for the festival anymore. Now, Utah did make a last-ditch effort to keep it, but they've opted to go with Colorado after next year.
All right, it is Friday. Cheers to the freaking weekend. Time for what we are watching, reading, and eating. All right, Moshe, tell us what you were watching. I know you and Alex have been talking about it on Instagram, and it sounds amazing.
So it's out today on Netflix. The film is called The Life List. We had the good fortune of seeing the premiere in New York earlier this week. It's a film with Sophia Carson, Connie Britton. Jill, I have to say, it's probably the most powerful movie I've seen in a very long time. The best movie I've probably ever seen as far as Netflix originals is concerned. And it makes you think differently as a parent, as a child, your life goals. It's deep. But I warn you, have the Kleenex ready. Alex and I cried 6 or 7 different times during the movie. I was weeping in a movie theater, with tears running down my face. It hit me, man. It hit me hard.
I don't know why you weeping in a movie theater is making me laugh, but I actually look forward to seeing it. I saw you posted about it, Alex posted about it, and I was like, I need this. This sounds life-changing.
It's deep. It's a really emotional story. It's a powerful story about finding yourself, and you see it as a completely different person as a parent. It's very cool. Anyways, it's the Life List over on Netflix. What are you watching, Jill?
I don't really know how I could top that, but I am going to be in much lighter fare. I'm going to be watching Michigan versus Auburn. They're both in the Sweet 16. The Sweet 16 officially started last night. The Michigan-Auburn game is tonight. The Auburn Tigers are a number 1 overall seed, so I guess Michigan is the underdog here, but anything is possible. They could pull off an upset.
This is an internal Mo News battle. Ren and Will went to Auburn.
Oh,
yeah, Ren's an Auburn alum, Jill, and you're a Michigan alum. Jill, I cried several times during the movie. Depending on how the game goes, either you or Ren might be crying.
It is true. I'm happy we discussed this because Slack will be a lot of fun tomorrow. Slack is, of course, our internal texting chain.
Jill, before we leave what we're watching, a special third addition here to what we're watching. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. We asked him at the end of our interview yesterday what his favorite Curb Your Enthusiasm episode is, because of course he's married to Cheryl Hines, who played Larry's wife in the show. He tells us that the episode where Larry picks up the prostitute at the Dodgers game, so he's able to use the HOV lane, is his favorite. And then there's this, Joe, which I imagine will cause a divided home. Take a listen to RFK's other favorite Curb episode.
I like, Cheryl. I always enjoy the episode when she has diarrhea in the car wash and she has to get out of her car. It's not an episode that she likes to talk about a lot, but anyway.
So, Jill, yes, you had RFK there say that he likes the episode where his real wife, Larry's fake wife in the show, has to run out of a car during a car wash because she has an episode of diarrhea.
He had to say it, Moshe.
He had to say it. And
he already said it. You didn't have to say it.
Well, I just had to repeat it because it's just I think both of us were like, what? And then he's like, and Cheryl doesn't like it. We're like, we're not surprised.
Yeah, no kidding. But he was a good sport, as we asked him that question on the way out. I will say, I had come up with the question, but then I chickened out. I didn't ask him.
I looked at you and you're like, thank you. And I was like, no, you are not leaving until you answer this question. So I asked him.
If not one of my better professional moments, but I do appreciate RFK Jr.
All right. Now to what we're reading this weekend. Jill, what do you got?
All right. So in this case, I'm going to go a little bit deeper. David Brooks from the New York Times, his latest piece is called A Surprising Route to the Best Life Possible. And I am looking forward to reading it. I was hoping that in less time than it takes to watch a Netflix film, maybe he'll impart some wisdom that'll change my life. What are you reading?
So Alex Eisenstadt of Axios has a new book out called Revenge. Some interesting scoops when it comes to the Trump reelection campaign. So I'll be taking a look at that for, any interesting insights.
Okay, Moshe, what are you eating?
Jill, there's an opening for a Bareka's place in New York City this weekend, Booba Bareka. And so Alex and I will be checking that out on Sunday.
Dare I ask, what is a Bareka?
So this is like a traditional Jewish, Sephardic Jewish. So the Sephardic Jews are the Jews of like the Mediterranean and the Middle East, puff pastry. It could be like phyllo dough or puff pastry. It's often filled with like cheese or spinach or potatoes. You've definitely seen them if you've ever traveled to Israel. But in New York City, apparently it's going to be the first like traditional Bareka's place. Again, it's like puff pastry. And it's sort of like you can have a savory type breakfast option that's like on the go.
Very good.
And Jill, what are you eating this weekend?
So there's a beloved deli here on Long Island called Village Heroes that closed down for a while, and it is now back open. So I am looking forward to trying the new location. It's just down the street from where it was once located, but I'm excited because I missed it. All right, guys, that is it for us. A long week here at the Mo News podcast. Thank you for listening. If you like what you hear, please share this with your friends. It will help us grow. Follow us and subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and review us in the App Store.
I'll see you guys on Monday.
Thanks for listening to the Mo News podcast. Have a fantastic day. I hope you enjoyed.